That, I really don't know.
Like, one arm is significantly higher than the other. Maybe it's me.
What's that?
I said, I feel like one arm is higher than the other.
It's a chair.
Hopefully.
Need new chairs.
Hey, so,
Is he home now?
yes.
I saw your mother last week.
Yeah, he's home.
Okay, ready?
We don't have clipbook, right?
I printed it, I just printed it now, I left one copy on the copy, we're upstairs. Go ahead, you can stop the meeting. I just pressed it. They actually just emailed it to me.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I'm gonna call the Town of West Warwick's Pension Board meeting to order. Monday, January 9, 2018, at 7:15. First order is prayer. Oh, wait a minute, before prayer, we have to close, right?
Motion, yeah,
Yeah.
but we can, yeah.
Motion to close executive session, seal the minutes, and affirm any votes taken.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the executive session and votes taken. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Amen.
We talked about killing two birds with one
Yeah,
stone, but that
that's-
didn't
yeah.
count for everything. Okay. Dear Lord, pray that the rest of the soccer team, that they come out alive and well and with no other harms. And that our military troops overseas, pray you'll give them with your guidance with your hand and keep them safe. And for any past retirees that have passed away, our condolences to their family. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Albert Hero,
Here.
David Lemoy,
Here, sorry.
Edward Fonseca, Paul Bertrand,
Here.
Colleen Anderson, Fred Jim, Ralph Salmonese. Did I give you too many?
Yeah, well, hey, just get one back for now.
Thank you.
So we're missing, sorry, Ed and
And
Fred.
Freddie.
Okay, next item E is approval of minutes for last month.
They're all fixed.
Again.
Motion to approve item E from minutes from June 11th, 2018.
Second the motion.
Motion made to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Board council report.
I think the only thing I have that is not on the agenda is I did come across a letter regarding the constable question that we had had, and it's from trying to get information about, using some constable time and being able to buy that back toward a pension contribution. I know that's a question that has come up, so I did find this letter, I'll give it to the clerk, and you can email it to everyone. But their question about the constable is, and this is from 1993, but the council's understanding was that the constable position within the town was an independent contractor and not a town employee. So that was kind of the piece of it that dealt with the constable. But I did find that, I know we were looking for information, so everything else I have is on the agenda.
Okay. Next is Rockland and Clearbrook monthly expenses. Okay, Rockland Trust. Beginning market value for this period was $31,854,702.09. Change in market value was down $255,514.52. The ending market value was $30,988,409.72. That's a loss of $37,271.28. From the first of the year till end of June, June 30th of this year, we started off at $31,639,322.30. Change in market value was down $273,055.91. Ending market value was $30,988,409.72 for a plus of $563,414.89. On Clearbrook, which we just received a few minutes ago, so if you bear with me while I sort it out. It is a little bit
Yes.
a little bit easier, yeah. Okay. Total plan market value, $168,808. What's the other thing we're looking for? Equity? No. I know you always ask for something
The
else.
alternatives, I just don't know which ones are listed.
The alternatives?
But it's not all of them are not included on Rockland, it's only a few of them, and
Okay.
It's Graham, this one, these two.
It's 2 or 3 of
The
them.
total for the alternatives is $6,778,000, looks like $266. And total in cash, $1,101,658. Any discussion?
The 35 million, right, that's including the alternative?
that's the total, yeah.
That's the total.
All right, then it said 6,778,000, I just wanna make sure that that's.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. So some of the alternative funds are allowed to be held with Rockland and some of them aren't. So the total of alternatives was the 6 million. That doesn't make up the
Right,
difference
because
between Rockland's
Rockland
numbers.
was only 30, so the 6 million that comes already.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 holdings in alternative funds. And I mean, they do change. We've had Graham Absolute Return Fund. I know that one's not included in Rockland's numbers. That holding is 1,329,726. I just don't. There's 3 other funds that I don't know.
think Kent knows one,
I don't
too.
think so either. That was going to be my guess.
And I forgot it might even be that Blackstone one. It's
Yeah, what's
definitely those two, I'll find out.
But there's the 4 funds, and I want to say at least 2 of them. I know at least 2 of them are not allowed to be held in Rockland Trust. They're just separate. I just don't know which ones, unfortunately. But it's not all 4. Because all 4 equals that 6 million number that you heard.
There's only 1,101,658 should be added too, right?
What was it?
The cash on here?
The cash is part of the 35 million. That's listed. under that. 35,168,808. That's the total. That's cash. That's alternatives. That's everything. Yeah, cash portion of the portfolio right now is 3.4%, and that's 1,181,000. It's held with Citizens Select Prime Money Market. It's a treasury bill.
Any other discussion?
We should try and probably get those 2 or 3 alternatives that are not listed the next time we meet with Clearbrook, and just say, what are those funds? That way we can kind of track. We did get them at one point, and then I think
I'll email
because they
it
moved
to
the
you.
funds
I think
around
I know
too.
what they are.
That way we know.
I'm gonna email you guys. What I emailed.
Okay, we won't see them for what?
They're coming in August.
August,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But I'll email them before you. I got them mentioned long ago. I'll find the email and email them.
All right.
You'll know what the alternative funds are.
Okay, see if they can add, those are the other 2 or 3 that we need, you know, see if they can put them all together in one.
Yeah, they're on there. I'll tell you which
Yeah.
ones they
Oh,
are.
okay.
Clearbrook has them. It's
All
just
right,
that
okay.
Rockland
I have
doesn't
them, yeah.
have any way of knowing.
All right. Okay, next is item H, payment of bills. First one, Olin and Penza. MFB 7372 for the amount of $2,613 for May. And WWPB, that's the plan redraft for $1,868.50. That was also for May.
Motion to pay item H1.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to pay H1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item under H is Nyhart Corporation. Actuary and Administrative Services for March 2018, there was 2 death benefit calculations and 1 return for the amount of $625.
Motion to pay H2.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to pay H2 in the amount of $625 to Nyhart Corporation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is I, death benefits. First one, Robert Sassy from the schools, 5/13/2018, a one-time payment of $2,000 and survivor monthly amount of $420.59.
Motion to approve item I1.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve item I1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I2, Robert Irving, one-time amount of $2,000 and no survivor monthly.
Motion to approve I2.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve I2. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
He doesn't have any spots.
Item J, return of contributions.
Yeah, so-
First one is Mara Cole, the library. Her termination date is 5/18/2018 in the amount of $9,745.38.
Make a motion to approve J1.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve J1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Actually, I'm sorry. Nope.
They get tricky.
I know.
J2 is Gina Gate Municipal. Termination date is 5/18/2018 in the amount of $24,665.01.
Make a motion to approve J2 in the amount of $24,565.01.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to J2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Application to receive. First one under K1 is John McGarrett, Police Chief. Normal is 8/22/18. Do we do them separately or put them all together?
Separate.
Okay.
Motion to receive K1.
Second.
Motion and seconded to receive K1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. K2, Gary Pacino, Schools, normal, 7/28/2018.
Motion to approve K2.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve K2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is L. Patrick Kelly. This one you're gonna report on?
Sure.
Yep.
Tracy has ordered his figures, but we haven't gotten them back yet from the actuary, so we're waiting on those. Once we get the figures, we indicated to Mr. Kelly and his counsel at the last meeting that we would forward those on, once we received them, just for them to be able to review them. I'm also in the process of putting together, an opinion for the board regarding the, police early retirement benefit, when you look at the plan with the consent judgments, and I'll be writing a legal opinion for the board to review, which I will provide before the next meeting. If the board approves that at the August meeting, when we have his figures, then we can send that to, counsel for Mr. Kelly as well. And we can go from there on his application for, the retirement benefit.
So a motion to table item L.
Until next month.
She added till next month.
Until next
I
month.
have second the motion, table, item L until next month.
Motion made and seconded to table L. Patrick Kelly till next month, as we're waiting on the figures. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item M, the opt-out for police and fire disabilities. Really, that was
I
for,
gave it to you. You
yeah, I know,
received
I'm
the
looking.
email. Basically, the town manager sent an email to the solicitor to contact us to make an appointment.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I know you gave it to
Is
me.
it your back of your
Right
phone?
here.
Oh,
Yeah, this,
nope.
No, last page
It's
here.
on the
Pat.
last page
You can
here.
have that.
Okay, we have been requesting, and they tried to get a meeting with the town manager and the solicitor regarding this. We have an email here from the town manager sent to Timmy Williamson regards to the opt-out information. We'd like to meet with you and discuss the issue the board is confronting regarding memorandum of understanding for police and fire disability retirees that was negotiated in 2014 as part of the labor agreements which were negotiated. So the town manager has sent this to Timmy Williamson, legal for the town council, so that we can get a date set up with him. Any other discussion on this? Any discussion for public? Okay.
Motion to table item M to next month.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table item M. All in favor?
Aye.
Seconded, against? Motion carries. Okay, next one is N. De Bola Quattro. I will excuse myself from this, and Dave, can you take this one?
I'll let Attorney Schmitz update us.
Sure.
We do have a quorum without him, yes.
We still do,
Yeah.
yes.
We had received a question, well, Tracy had received a question from the parties regarding the benefits that the DRO provided. And because there were questions about the DRO, the board had asked that I draft a letter letter to Mr. Bobola and all council of record regarding the provisions of the DRO that the board feels conflict with the plan. Originally, when Mr. Bobola's pension application was approved by the board, it was approved with the exception that certain plan provisions were not in accordance with the plan, and those were not approved, and a letter was sent to that effect, specifically regarding the survivorship benefits for the alternate pay. As more questions have come up regarding the DRO, I put together a more detailed letter going through the DRO and the paragraphs that are conflicting with the plan provisions. And if the board wants, I can send the letter to Mr. Bobola and CC Michelle Bobola and both attorneys who were involved in the divorce and also the attorney that drafted the DRO so that they can present a revised DRO that complies with the plan provisions.
Alright, so we have a letter drafted by legal counsel. If the board would be in favor, a motion would be in order to submit that letter to both parties. Is there a motion?
Did we see the letter? Did we see the letter, or is that just? We
You
understand
Yeah.
it's legal.
No, you will absolutely understand it, and I'll absolutely give you a copy. And if you want to table it till the end of the meeting, I can give you the copy to review. We talked about it
Yeah.
before you got here.
That's what we were saying.
No,
We weren't
that's
sure if
okay.
we were gonna be able to approve it if no one shows up because he had to recuse himself, but it's,
Oh,
like she
so-
explained, it's pretty straightforward. It's
so we're
essentially,
pretty much in agreement.
Yeah,
Okay.
give it a read. I mean, you can,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we can go back.
we can go back to it.
go back to it at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
But really, it's exactly what I said. I went through the paragraphs that were conflicting with the plan. I quoted the paragraphs from the order, and I said what the issue was.
Okay.
So,
Alright,
definitely.
Can I ask a question to the board on that matter?
Sure, please.
Norman Lodge, 88 Silwood Lane. Can I just ask why that's our problem if a quadro's a legal document that their attorney should set up? Seems like we're putting the board in a situation here where you guys are, hey, listen, you gotta abide by the plan. If the quadro's wrong, I don't know why it falls in the face of this board. So, you know, it seems like we're doing the proactive things here, and hey, I'm a lawyer as well. If I screw up the quadro, you don't have to go by the quadro.
It's an excellent question.
And the quadros in
Very
Rhode
good
Island,
question.
the quadros in Rhode Island, of my understanding, there's probably one lawyer who gets quadros right in this state. So I really don't know why we're doing the lawyering here for either party, whether it's the spouse,
Yep.
divorced, or Mr. Bobola. Seems crazy.
We don't do it anymore. We agree completely. The board passed a set of regulations, and one of being that we do not review quadros, accept quadros, do anything with quadros. We don't want have anything to do with administering them anymore. However, this was sent to the board, submitted back in 2012, before the board had said we won't take them anymore. So this was something that was on record with the old actuary of the board, and then went to Nyhart, and then when it came time for him to retire, we had it, and that was when the issue came up before this board. I couldn't agree with you more. We don't do them anymore for this exact reason.
There's other local cities and town boards that don't even, if the quadro's wrong, too bad.
Right.
It's up to you guys to fix it,
And
not
that-
the board.
And that's
Go
our
to family
stance.
court, straighten it out,
And that's our stance
But
now, but
it's crazy.
it was previously approved, unfortunately.
It was previously submitted.
Submitted.
The
Accepted by the board, I should say, right?
That also questionable, when you
Really?
look at the minutes. It was previously submitted to the board.
All right.
That much I can represent in 2012, and it was received by the town. But
But you're right. Normally, this
Yeah.
would be, oh, you have a quadro question? Great. That's not ours. And that's how most of them have been handled.
I've been asking the parties, both parties, it's not for me to answer, and I don't even think it's for you to answer.
Right.
we're not answering it. We're just letting them know the parts that conflict with the plan, and then they have to resolve that to the extent that they can. The board is not amending any DROs or having anything to do with that. The extent that we're being involved is to say, this does not conflict, we can't approve it, or excuse me, this
Does conflict.
does conflict, does not conform to the plan, and we can't approve it to the extent that it doesn't conform.
And the problem is they won't get this to you because they're gonna have to rehire the divorce attorneys. And they're gonna have to pay a legal fee, so they're looking for you to take care of it.
Sure.
for them. That's where you are with these things.
Sure. That's reasonable, though.
That's exactly why we stopped doing it.
Yeah.
that had been happening repeatedly.
I would say this is not the normal procedure for quadros that are coming in currently.
We're not taking them
We're not
at all.
even taking
Yeah,
it.
we're
We
not
won't take them at all.
So-
Since 2014, we
There's
won't
just
take
that
them.
small handful, right, that we have.
That were previously submitted.
Yeah, I think we have eight, I
Eight.
wanna say, that had been submitted before that.
Sounds right.
I think so.
I have-
So, is there a motion to take item N out of order, or did you
Well,
want to?
no, I had a chance to, and
Okay.
I was listening, I
Gotcha.
memorized myself with it. This is just sending a letter, so I make a motion that we, on letter N there, have legal counsel send this letter to the appropriate parties.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
motion's made and seconded to send the letter drafted by legal counsel to the parties related to item N. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Okay, next one, O, is the COLAs for the police and fire disabilities. Really not much on it, is there?
Today, the meeting.
The agreement was,
We're gonna
basic,
I'd like to make a motion
go ahead.
that we ask Nyhart to run some calculations, doing conversions with 5 years of COLAs, with, 6 2/3 disability, and then what happens when we convert them to a 55% active salary. And I'd like you to talk with Dave Lemoy here and get all of the scenarios that he's put together and send those to Nyhart, and ask them to run those various scenarios for us so that we can see what the differences are going to be before we make any decisions on the fire and police disability COLAs. And so, with that information, hopefully if we could receive it by next month, we'd like to then look at this next month.
So to update anybody who hasn't been here, I don't know if anyone is familiar with it, I know it's been on the agenda for a couple of months, that there has been a question that's come up for, members of the, fire department who have an occupational disability pension, and how the COLAs apply to the occupational disability pension. When you read the fire consent judgment, members who retire on an occupational disability prior to 25 years of employment receive 2/3 of their basic annual salary, and the benefit will continue for the period of such disability, or if sooner, until the date upon which the member would have completed 25 years of service and qualified for retirement had the member rendered service without interruption, at which time the member shall receive an occupational disability benefit of 55% of the basic annual salary of active employees who then occupy the same position as the member did upon retirement. The COLA for such members shall be treated in accordance with paragraph 6 herein. That's paragraph 5 of the fire consent judgment. The issue with that, and it's actually paragraph 7 in that consent judgment that talks about COLAs, is it discusses COLAs and the 7-year COLA suspension. What it doesn't discuss is the interaction between the 7 years of a COLA suspension and then the 15 years of COLAs and that conversion, and what happens to the COLAs in the conversion date. So, say someone goes out on occupational disability pension for fire and is 10 years before they would have reached their 25th year, well, otherwise would have been their 25th year. If they have 7 years of being suspended, then they receive 3 years worth of COLAs, then they're gonna convert, and they're gonna change their amount that they're receiving. What happens to the 3 years worth of COLAs that they receive? And how does the actuary calculate all that? There is not an answer to that in the consent judgment. That's the issue that's been presented to the board, because we do have a person who received that pension. So we had a meeting with council, we had a meeting with the union president.
Yes, we did.
Council for the, town that was part of the consent judgment, and the town manager. And the request has been made to clarify the issue, which is most likely gonna have to happen through a Rule 60 motion, which will have to be made by the town, to amend the consent judgment to discuss the application of the COLAs with the conversion for the fire. The board, to the extent that they need to get the information to the town to be able to present the motion, has suggested having the actuary calculate the actuarial conversion at that time that I said conversion 10 times in that sentence, I'm sorry, but the time that the pension converts from the occupational disability to the 66 2/3 to the 55 according to the consent judgment. So that's, the discussion that's before the pension board now is to have the actuary run scenarios to be able to present to the town, to have the town present it to the court, to have an amended consent judgment that addresses the COLAs.
If I may.
Can you hold on a second, Norman? We have a motion's been made. Do we have a second on it?
Can
Just-
I just take a second to amend that motion too?
Sure.
I'd like to amend the motion to, with the understanding that we are going to pay Nyhart for these services. It's not inside of the normal services that they do for us. So, we are agreeing to pay for these services from Nyhart.
Okay, it's been, motion's made and amended.
You have a second on this motion?
Did I hear from the audience first?
Well, you should get the motion seconded, and then we get,
Second the motion for discussion.
And then you can open a discussion, or you can withdraw the motion, you can, either way, you have to do something with it.
I just want to keep it in order, we're out of
Right.
order.
Dave just seconded.
A second for discussion.
Second, okay, motion made and seconded.
Discussion.
Discussion?
Okay, well, discussion on this?
Norman?
So, and I haven't been to the last few meetings, but again, I agree with council that both issue M and O have been around for a long time. And the problematic part for me is these are agreements and negotiations that all of our groups had. My group being the normal retirees, police and fire, as well as Russ's municipal group, then Jerry's disabled group. And we negotiated not with the pension board, but we negotiated with the town. So I'm just not sure why this board is entertaining M and O when I think it probably should be for the town manager and the labor lawyer. I would just like to expand or ask the pension board member in respects to the NIHOT payment for the running the numbers. So that's in our normal fee from the pension board, or is that outside of the normal fees the pension board pays? Because that's a concern to me and the members if we're spending more money on something that was negotiated, not with any of you members present on those negotiations.
Correct, they are going to charge a fee because they're going to do a service.
And we're paying it out of the pension board money? That
Yes.
clearly doesn't make any sense.
The question is, NIART wants to know what to do when it converts, and no one has an answer.
But shouldn't that come out in the negotiations between the parties that negotiated our consent agreements? I
Yes.
do not know why we're entertaining this
And we've,
as items here.
so essentially we've gone down that avenue in every different way possible. We've met with the union president, who really kind of left it open. Whatever you guys decide, let me know when you have an answer. And
What-
it's pretty much with the same answer that we got from the manager, who at the time wasn't part of the negotiating, unless we can get Fred Presley here to talk about it. So this new manager was kind of like, I don't really,
Well, I mean,
Have
Bill
an answer for
Dolan
you.
was
So-
involved in all aspects of our
Correct.
negotiations. There's
So we-
lawyers involved on both
Matt,
sides.
so we called
We
Bill
s-
Nolan,
the-
Bill Dolan today,
We
and
talked
he
to him today, yeah.
essentially gave us the same answer, it was probably an oversight. You're right, it's not in any of the
So it
consent
should
judgment
be
or-
renegotiated, or it should be in the Superior Court, or there's other avenues
So
to
the-
do. I just don't know why we're doing things maybe delegated from town officials or
We're essentially
anyone
gonna-
else.
We're gonna come up with a recommendation that will be presented to the council for them to.
Well, I have an
renegotiate.
objection that I want to be noted, that we're paying NIHOT services for something that clearly you had nothing to do with. So that's something I want to see afforded to the town in respects to the negotiations. If they don't know how to interpret their own consent decree and they're asking for answers from you, I'm
it's
having
not-
a hard time understanding it, to
Norman,
be
it's
honest
not the
with you.
town trying to understand, it's NIHOT. They don't know how to go about applying that, a judgment.
But
What are you
but
saying?
why is the pension board paying NIHOT for this? You had nothing to do with this consent decree.
That's correct.
You're
but-
taking monies out of the retirement fund to pay administrative expenses that have nothing to do with administrating this plan. This is the consent decree that's still not in the plan redraft yet.
We cannot go to the judge that did the consent agreement and make these changes. The council has to do that.
Okay,
In
so
order to educate
you're
the
helping
pub-
my argument.
Right.
I don't understand why it's in front of you.
So-
Because we're just trying to give them the information, because they don't understand what was there. We talked with Bill, Nolan.
They could utilize NIHOT themselves.
We talked with him this afternoon, and he said, when this was drawn up, nobody thought about the conversion. Nobody thought about any of the scenarios that run out of that, the different things that can happen. So that's why NIHOT doesn't know which way to go. So in order to do that, we're gonna give them our opinion based on some scenarios and let them do what's called a Rule 60?
I mean,
To get the judge to look at that, because there's also a question in there in regards to state statute which counteracts that. So we're not sure which way to go with that, and that needs to have the judge who did that consent agreement make that decision. We can't make that decision, but the council has to bring
but
that
you
to
can
him.
pay for those figures and everything else to be ran. That's really problematic to my group, so,
So-
and it'd be problematic to anyone who works for this town to understand that we're utilizing the pension board money to straighten out these issues that have been on this calendar for over a year, I think. Kevin O'Connell might have put them up.
So your only real issue here is that, that the money is coming out of the pension fund and should be coming from the town budget.
I would think if they're questioning the interpretation of their consent decree with any of our parties, I would think it would be coming out of some other source than the pension board or the retirement plan that I'm a member of and we are a member of. I find that problematic.
Just to be clear, though, it's not the town that's questioning the interpretation of the plan. It's the board that's interpreting the application of the plan.
So
which-
why can't you get those answers from the town?
Because they don't have,
Why?
they don't know.
So they negotiated something they don't know
So
about.
this is where I'm
It's
totally on
lacking.
board with you.
So I'm
gonna
really
sus-
getting lost
I'm
now.
gonna sustain what Mr. Landrosh is saying and make a motion that we recommend to the council that we need to come up with a recommendation to give to NIHAR, and it's on them to cover those expenses. Because in my opinion, the consent judgment is inadequate in answering the question, and that's not our problem.
I guess I
You
concur
just
with
have a
that.
pending motion, so you just, if you
We can-
withdraw it,
I'll withdraw it.
right,
Do I have to withdraw my second and,
Yeah.
No.
yes.
Okay.
I'll withdraw the motion and amend it, and restate a new motion then.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
You ready? Okay, so I'm making a motion to ask that this pension board ask NIHART to run some calculations, doing the conversion with 5 years of COLAs on a 6 and 2/3 disability, and then convert it to active salary, that they should run several scenarios, in accordance with, scenarios that Dave Lamoy has already come up with, and we'll give those to NIHART. And that we send a request to the town council that they pay whatever those fees are that NIHART sends us to run these calculations.
Well, let's do a second and then we can do discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
If we do that, we should not send it to NIHAR until we get the town's approval that they're gonna
I
pay for
I
it.
don't think we should limit it to just NIHAR expenses, because there's other expenses that we're going to incur. So I think we should just keep the motion pretty simple and say, make a motion to recommend that this issue be presented to the council and have them cover all expenses that are related to this issue until we have it resolved. Because we're gonna incur legal fees, we're gonna incur actuarial fees. And just say your consent judgment is not answering the question, and we need an answer, unfortunately.
Part of the answer is running some scenarios through NIHAR and they're gonna charge a fee for it, so you need to pay for that.
So we can say we're willing to
And
come
then
up with a
whatever fees that are gonna
recommendation.
occur after that, when we get to the point where we start applying the Rule of 60, which in this case would bring in Mr. Williamson.
So we're gonna have to not get these, not get an answer back to NIHART, not ask them to run any scenarios until we get the town council to agree to pay for whatever costs, which we don't even know what they are at the moment.
Right.
You know, we only have an estimate on NIHAR's costs, but we don't have any estimates on any further legal action.
Kind of again echoing Mr. Landrosh's concern is that that's really not our problem. Our problem is we have inadequate documents, essentially. They came up with something that doesn't answer the question. They brightly admitted it, that, yeah, it was probably an oversight. So now that becomes ours. Now we have to come up with an interpretation, pay for actuarial studies, pay for our attorney to come up with.
Well, I mean, I think
Drafts
we do
and-
have to come up with a recommendation.
We can come up with a recommendation,
But-
we're more than
but-
willing to come up with a recommendation,
not-
but not the
not the cost.
expenses
Right,
that are
not the
going to be
expenses.
incurred with that recommendation.
No. Okay. Well, then I guess we're gonna have to,
Withdraw the,
withdraw the amendment,
motion.
and then we'll have to just amend, just ask for,
May I
Cost.
suggest that you send a letter to the town council
yeah,
asking them to pick up the cost of it? Because it was their labor attorney and that group's labor that drew that thing, and it should be paid
Right.
for by the town. It's not our fault the consent decree didn't mention it,
right.
and the pension should never have to pay for that.
I wouldn't think you have to ask them to pay for it. Just say, this is not the pension board's problem, it's your negotiations, you straighten out and give us an answer.
The only thing you're only right to a certain point, Jerry. The other part is, we have one case that's pending on this, and we can't move forward with it until we get these answers. So that individual's being held up on the money.
Then let them go to the town and not you guys, and don't spend the money.
well, I mean,
And
realistically, it is within the scope of
Same
the
thing with
pension.
the Quadros, you're not taking any more, let them figure it out, without you guys paying. That's what.
We just wanna also make sure that any members that are due benefits are getting those correct benefits also. We have to kind of weigh cost versus is a retiree, missing out on benefits.
It's within the scope of this pension board's charter to provide recommendations to the town council. So that's why we're here. So,
Right.
I agree with you that
We
perhaps
shouldn't
the
pay.
costs are not within the scope of our administrative fees.
Yeah,
But
I
we-
just don't think they fall under the definition of an administrative fee if you're kind of clarifying your own consent judgments here.
Yeah,
That's
no,
where I'm,
we,
that's where I'm very problematic with that. We're utilizing this board and our actuary to do the work of a consent decree that you weren't privy to. It's problematic.
right, it is. And
We agree.
thank you
We
for
agree
bringing
with
that to our attention.
We agree with that.
There was some concern about spending money on that in the discussion we had, but hadn't thought about it further than that. One of the things I've been trying to do is keep the expenses down since I've come to here, instead of running the show a little bit here. But we do, as Helene has said, we do have to give recommendations according to what David said, to make sure that they're getting the right amount. Because if Nyhart hadn't stopped and said, well, we're not sure how to figure this out, and they just figured out a certain way, that individual was gonna get screwed. So we're just trying to make sure that the retiree gets what the retiree is supposed to get. So we will make the recommendation to the council, but that recommendation's not gonna be made until we can get some information, and we're just gonna have to have them pay for it.
And so everyone knows, every retiree is represented by someone in these situations.
Not necessarily. Are you taking on members that have
In the
retired?
consent decree?
These are members after 2014, so there's some people I know for a fact that are not under the disability group that have retired under a disability pension since 2014, and that's kind of the group that this happens to
But I
affect.
mean, they're still under a contract or a consent decree.
They're retired members. They're not. I mean, they could
They were
Reference-
represented by the union
they could
before they
reference
retired.
right. They can reference their contract when
So
they
that-
retired.
To me,
Unfortunately,
that's-
their contract is gray. It doesn't really answer it.
So the contract between the town and whatever union that is is asking you for the answers of what they negotiated.
Essentially, yes.
Still doesn't make sense.
Right. Right. Well, it's
Still
Nyhart
doesn't.
that's asking the question.
actuary can't calculate the benefit, and the pension board needs to tell the actuary how to calculate the benefit, which the pension board can't do, because they don't have the interpretation, well, excuse me, they don't have the information they need to do the interpretation of the plan, which is their vein, to interpret the plan. But I agree, they need the information to be able to interpret it. You can't interpret nothing.
Well, if the parties don't know how to interpret it, I don't know how you guys would want to be in the situation of interpreting it.
No,
Because neither party understands.
Exactly, but that was the purpose of trying to illustrate various scenarios to the parties who were negotiating this consent judgment. So if they understand the impact of a decision based on different kinds of scenarios that could occur or are likely to occur, then they'll make a better decision. So we want to provide.
Or amend it.
With, right, they're gonna have to amend the consent judgment,
In
one way
other
or
words,
another.
they're gonna renegotiate.
They're gonna have to at least amend
Well,
part of it. Maybe it'll be.
I
a
don't know if
simple
it's,
solution.
Norman, I don't know if it's renegotiation. The judge can amend his decision, correct?
Yeah, it's her, yes.
Her, okay, him or her. The judge can amend the decision. That doesn't necessarily mean it does a renegotiation. If all parties agree to it, then it's not a problem. If somebody disagrees with it, well, then it goes from there, but, it's just a question of what happens with it. And Mr. Nolan earlier today, in the meeting, said nobody thought about that, it was just an oversight, it's just like any other thing that we've had in the past, you negotiate something, but you don't know about the rest of it, and so that's.
$450 an hour, you probably should have thought about it. $450 an hour.
That's beyond our scope.
So I'll make
Yeah.
a recommendation that we have another meeting, Albert and I, with the manager, and discuss what the board has come up with as far as our thoughts on how this should proceed forward.
Is there a motion?
Second that.
Motion made and seconded that David and I have another meeting with the town manager in regards to the last discussions we had in the last few minutes, and present this problem to them and our thoughts and opinions on it, and then go from there. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item P, the memo to HR. Right back here. All right, I had it, here it is.
I can do it.
Go ahead.
That is a situation regarding pension contributions during leaves of absence or workers' compensation or IOD benefits. And it's going through the different plans and consent judgments as far as when contributions should be taken out, when they shouldn't be taken out, what counts for continuous service, what doesn't count for continuous service, so that HR can properly advise people that this is the way their pension will be calculated when they come and apply for the pension. There are various practices that we have become aware of as pension applications have come in that are making it very difficult to calculate pensions. So the issue has come up whether or not pension contributions should be made while someone is out on a leave of absence or on workers' compensation or IOD, when those contributions should be taken, if it should be when the person is out on the leave, when they return back from the leave, if they're terminated after the leave, and how much the pension contributions should be, and whether or not sick or vacation time can be used for the contributions. Those are all issues that have come up when we've received pension applications, when Tracy has gotten the figures from HR, and the board has made an effort to get the information to HR earlier so that that information can be given to the plan participants well before they reach the retirement age, to be able to help it from when Tracy gets the numbers. Right now it's become a lot of a process for the pension board clerk, because when she gets the numbers there's a lot of information that we don't have on contributions for leaves of absences and various workers' compensation and IOD leaves, and whether or not contributions are being made
and if they're being made timely. So that's a memorandum that is being put together to discuss all of the issues so that employees who are going out on a workers' compensation leave or a leave of absence or an IOD absence can be given a form to fill out so that they understand how that will affect their pension if and when they apply for one years down the road or however long down the road.
Some of the scenarios in past discussions on this was that people could actually get screwed and not realize it until they can actually go to collect their pension and find out that that leave of absence broke their in-service time. Or there was other policies, like for instance, school department allowing them to be out and yet use some sick time so they can take contributions and pay, but how can you be out and then use sick time and so you're, or vacation time, so you're working, and it creates all kinds of problems. This form here, with some changes that we've talked about earlier tonight, HR can give that to a person, and they'll be better informed of what their situations and consequences either way will be when they take this leave of absence for whatever reason it's going to be. Any other discussion?
I just kind of want to discuss getting back to, it seems like this is another issue that is HR's problem that kind of was put onto us. So I'm wondering if we're going to incur expenses on this, if HR is willing to reimburse those expenses. Because although I agree it is an issue and it becomes a pension issue, inherently I would say it's a human resources issue first and
Well,
not necessarily a pension board issue.
the only payment we have or money that's involved with right now is for Kristen to draw this up. Am I correct? There's no other fee so far other than this?
Correct. No, I just,
I just want to say,
Make it
before
more.
we move forward with
Yep.
any more, I think, as much as we can recommend HR to prevent problems like we've had, it's great, but
Okay.
to end up spending more and more money, I mean, we're almost becoming like a free legal resource when there's a problem in the town of West Warwick.
So,
So just my thoughts. I don't.
I understand what you're saying. My thought then is, do we just don't go any further with this and just make the recommendation to the pension board? I mean, to the HR, and see where they go with it?
Yeah, I'd say, give it to HR. Here's what we think. Here's what's going to make our lives easier. But,
Okay, I understand what you're saying. The only thing I have a question on is, we make this recommendation, tell them, and 6 or 8 months later, somebody decides to take a leave of absence for various different things that are listed here that have happened, and HR doesn't know anything about it. So then when it comes time down the road, whoever's on the board, and we gotta take this application, and we find out they don't have the amount of service time or so forth, we're back right with the same problems we have right now.
no, I agree. The issue needs to be resolved. It's just a matter of who's paying for it.
Yeah.
You're not granting any leave of absences,
Right.
No, we don't.
just so you know.
No, you're right. But we're spending more time and money
And that's what ends up happening. They apply for the pension,
when we're
and all
trying
of a
to
sudden,
do it, because now
we run the numbers.
we have to go
and-
through legal anyway to say, hey, this is, right, Nyhart says, no, they don't have the service time. So we're paying for that, to find that out. I think what it would cost to have this done and give to HR with our recommendation and have it something there that, if it cuts out 90% of the problem, then we're ahead of the game, money-wise.
Right.
That's my thought on
Yeah.
how I'm looking
No,
at
I
it.
agree. It will save money, but she needs to be open to the idea that, just don't throw it on us and say, come up with what we need to do.
They asked us about the workers' comp? Yeah.
What is it?
HR asked the question.
That's what I'm saying. They come to us with it, and it's like,
Yeah.
well,
they have asked the question recently, but this was in the works before they
Right,
asked the
from
question
before.
because of applications that have come through that have had concerns.
right.
We've had multiple situations where employees have been out on workers' comp and have made a varying degree of contribution, excuse me. And it's been an administrative nightmare to go backward and try and make sure that this person has the appropriate service credit and that they made the appropriate contributions, to be able to calculate the pension correctly. It would be much easier if the person going out on a leave of absence knew what they had to contribute, when they had to contribute it, and we didn't have to deal with it 10, 15, 20 years down the road. The issues really started coming up recently because of the municipal having the longer look back for wages, because they ended up having, now they have 10 years back for wages. So when we started looking 10 years back, there were all these things came up that hadn't been caught before. When it was 3 years you were looking at, you'd see wages missing for a week. Well, why were there no wages for that week? Or wages were really small for a certain week. You know, maybe there were 7 or 8 hours worked instead of 40 hours worked. And all these questions started coming up repeatedly, which is why the board had initially kind of started looking into this. And workers' comp has been a constant issue on contributions being taken out or not being taken out, and continuous service being credited or not being credited for workers' comp, time that people are out on that for various problems. So it has been a constant problem that this board has had to deal with, and it definitely would be a cost-saving measure to address it ahead of time, but it is at the outset an HR issue.
Right.
It's just the pension board having to deal with it much later down the line and trying to be an ounce of prevention, I guess,
Yeah.
was the idea.
I'm fine with the work done, but I just don't want this to turn into us trying to tell HR how to do her job either.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's just going to go on, and oh, I have one more problem. What if this happens? And it's so
Yeah.
I'm fine with the form at this point. It is what it is, but
Well, on the other hand, I'm not so sure we've been satisfied with the way HR has been doing their job, so maybe it is a good idea to guide them a little bit.
just not at our
Or-
expense. I mean,
Yeah.
My recommendation,
Talk to the town.
oh my gosh, it's been a really long day.
You know,
I'm sorry.
We wanna make sure the town
My
manager gets a copy of this too.
And my recommendation would be that there be a meeting between, a couple of members of this board, the human resources
Sure.
staff, and the town manager.
that would be, I think, more beneficial than
And-
having
and-
you come up with form after form.
Correct, absolutely.
You
And
know?
to go through current practices, plan practices, what complies, what doesn't comply as far as continuous service credit, and have it out in an hour.
Yeah.
And go through and do that. And then, as you said, we've told you the way pension is interpreting these things. We've told you how to tell the employees the way pension is interpreting these things.
Right.
And, that's the extent to which we can be involved. But I do think that I would certainly recommend that there be a meeting set up to, now that we've gone through the process and we've figured out kind of all of the pension pieces that go into these questions,
Fair enough.
to really sit down and explain that.
And we've addressed this in the pension plan redraft, right?
To some extent, yes.
I mean-
Workers' comp is the big thing that wasn't in the 06 plans, that's in the redraft, that talks about contributions being made or not being made and continuous service being credited or not being credited. So that's in the redraft.
So the employee needs, has a leg to stand on at least if HR is telling them one thing and they're looking at the pension plan and saying something different,
Absolutely.
so.
And you've been very patient.
Linda DeCapa, I work for the school department, and I heard you talk about the, service time and so forth. Do you deduct for people who are out on medical leave, short-term, like maybe 6 months or a year, or maternity leave, or things like that? Do you have an interruption of service, like even if people are still being paid, are they considered not in service at that time, during that time?
It's my understanding, and correct,
Schools is a difficult answer.
Yeah.
That's the one that's very difficult
That's
to
the theme.
answer.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
the
say, it's
theme
my
of the
understanding that sometimes there's no pay depending on the type of leave, and there's no contributions. Then there's other times
Most of the time there is pay and contribution.
they
Right.
will take a leave
Using
of
sick or
absence.
using vacation or things like that, that's not an issue. If you're, if
No interruption.
Right.
correct.
There's no interruptions that way. But if you take a leave of absence and you realize that there's no pension contributions made, what's been done in the past sometimes is, well, we'll take vacation time, maybe while they're out working comp or something. So now, it's like, as she pointed out earlier, all of a sudden you're looking at down the road, well, how come there was only so many hours this week? They put just a few hours in, so to make the contributions, enough to make the contribution. Well, you can't, if you're putting hours in, that means you're working, whether you're using sick time, vacation time, comp time, or personal time, whatever, and yet be out of workman's comp. So that was another issue. So, is it a break of services or not? Those headaches have been, of course, they come up down the road.
They do, and schools is extra tricky because you guys have a salary protection. So for example, let's just say you're at a position, and I'm gonna use round numbers, math's not my suit, but you're in a position, you make $100,000. You have an injury, you go out on workers' comp, but you're not totally incapacitated, you're partially incapacitated. So you come back at a different position, now you're making $50,000. Well, schools have provisions to bump that salary to make you whole while you're working that
Right, and
position.
that's workers' comp.
It's workers' comp will pay you the workers' comp piece,
Right,
but the
and
town will pay you the other piece, and
Right.
contributions are only being
We
taken
make
out
you
of,
whole.
will make you whole, but contributions are only being taken out of the non-workers' comp piece.
Right.
And there's no contributions out of the workers' comp piece, which if I'm now gonna do a 10-year look back, do you wanna get half your salary for that whole time? Of course not, you want your whole salary. So
Right.
it's issues like that that we're trying to make clear to the employees, that even though you have contributions being made, they're only being made on the piece that's being paid by the town, not the piece that's being paid by workers' comp. So if you want to have the continuous service credit and the salary that goes into that 10-year calculation, you have to pay the contributions on the piece from workers' comp. I know it's a mess.
And I understand the workers' comp, but my question was more towards a medical leave, so 3 months or 6 months, even though you're continuing to use your sick time and you're paying, you're putting in your contribution.
Sick time is like,
Are you deducted?
Yeah,
that
sick time you're
which we
working.
have many
sick time is like,
that
sick
that's
time,
fine.
vacation, personal, or comp time, all those are considered still working. It's just, you're not AWOL, as they say in the service.
The situation would be more difficult if you were out for 6 months and you had only 3 months worth of sick leave and vacation time to use, and right now you're on 3 months of leave of absence.
So you're unpaid.
It's
You know,
the
so you're
unpaid
not
leaves.
contributing stuff.
Correct.
That's the problem.
So unpaid leaves of absences are allowed under the plan, and they're not considered a break in service, but you're not given continuous service credit for them. So if you have an unpaid leave of absence, you're not making any contributions, you're not working, you're not gonna get credit for those let's say 3 months from that example. So if you need 12 years, you really need 12 years and 3 months to fulfill their 12 years of continuous service, because you have a 3-month break.
Would that also apply if you worked, went somewhere else and then came back?
That's a whole different section.
Maybe I'll save that for next.
There's a whole new regulation on that one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Dave, getting back to you, I'm not a lawyer, so I like to
No.
make things like really simple. No offense.
None taken.
I am in total agreement with you. I think we should have a meeting and say, hey, because as an active union member, I've seen HR and I know and I don't want to say anything crazy, but
You've seen
in
issues.
action, right.
You've
in
seen
action.
issues. No problem.
So we could go, instead of say, hey, here you go, you could say, hey, this is what we are encountering.
Right.
Can you please do your job,
Yeah.
sort of thing? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I said, I like to make it simple.
Yeah, and
I
I
think
just
that's
think
exactly what you're saying.
It's not that she doesn't want to. I just think it's, she doesn't understand.
Understand,
Yeah.
right.
So she needs. I mean, we need, like I
Instead
said.
of giving her the answer key,
Yeah, kind of explain
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
push her along
Yeah.
to our problems.
And I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial than, this form and then, revising it.
I am totally.
Because I think honestly, you give her a form, she may just look at it and go, all right, and then it
Exactly.
sits on the desk, and then somebody 6 months later takes a leave of absence, and then she forgets about the form. I mean, it just needs to be this, using vacation time while you're out on leaves to cover your contributions cannot be allowed. Like things like that, like general guidelines need to be explained. Like you can't do that. It messes everything up.
I would volunteer my time with somebody else.
Right.
To go meet with
Right,
HR.
If it's in order, I'll make a motion to schedule a meeting with at least 2 board members and the Human Resources Director to discuss this issue further,
I would suggest the manager too.
and the manager as well.
town manager, second that motion.
My question, Dave, on that, in your motion is, as far as what we've done so far with this, where do we do with this?
Still utilize it as a tool,
Yeah, but I mean, do
It's
we-
not done, that's
do you
not
make the
done.
few changes that we talked about and then have her, or do we just stop where we are?
I'd rather meet first, to be honest with you.
That's what I'm asking, okay.
Let's meet
Is
first.
that board's decision?
Yeah, I would meet first, just mark
Yeah,
up,
meet
just
first.
go in there with a marker.
Okay, I mean,
Because they're gonna have
there
their
was
own
only one,
input.
one thing that, if I remember correctly, that we talked about that last paragraph there, right?
Yeah, that
Okay.
question, and then there was just a question on how specific you wanna get, like for
For
schools
time,
and
right.
time and who uses what time where.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna hold off on this, then do your, your motion's gonna hold this off and have that meeting.
Yes.
Are you
Okay.
meeting with both directors or just
Yeah, I would say every HR person, schools too.
the library and everything
could-
is under the town?
Would it
Right.
be easier to do two separate meetings, or is it close enough where we can all sit in the same room at the same time?
It's close enough, schools just have an extra, an extra bit of layer on
Because I know,
explaining how the
I just know
contributions work.
schools are different, and I don't wanna have a conversation go one way and it just go, like,
It's the same general
Okay,
layout.
alright.
The complication with schools is the fact that there's a possibility for comp and regular benefits combined,
Okay.
and what contributions come out where. But that is a side conversation that can just happen with school.
Because the town manager doesn't go to school, the superintendent's at the school, so,
God.
do you know what I mean?
So
Yeah,
it's
so
a
maybe
separate-
just
Do
do
it
this both
separate.
HR.
Do
Do
separate.
it
or you
separate,
can
I
do
would do it separate.
Either
do
way.
them separate.
Personally,
Yeah, because
I
then,
would.
then it's gonna,
I would do it separate.
It's,
then it's gonna be, the superintendent's gonna be in the meeting too. Yeah, let's just do it separate.
It's almost like the town manager, she's,
Exactly.
you know, you gotta do the right thing.
right,
Or
But-
even just have the town manager, town HR first, discuss it all, and then
Mhm.
say, by the way, you know, this is how we're doing it on the town side, and
Yep.
it's,
yep, and
Yeah,
here's
let's-
what transfers.
yeah,
I don't
okay.
even know who's keeping track of it.
Plus, I think it would keep their attention better if we separate them.
yeah, I agree.
So you wanna amend your motion to make it two separate meetings then?
Sure. I'll amend the motion for 2 meetings.
A second.
Motion made and seconded to have two separate meetings, one with the school HR and superintendent, and one with the town manager and town's HR, and board members, also at each, meeting. All in favor?
Aye,
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah, I'll send those emails too.
thank you.
Okay, Q, APRA request. Nothing on that?
We have none.
I just kept it on just in
Yeah.
case.
Just in
'cause I know
case.
it kinda went with John Hancock, so
That's,
I can remove that for next meeting.
We do not have any currently
Um,
pending
hold on.
requests.
No?
Maybe, well, let me just,
Oh, wait, you do, didn't you get a request?
not so much for the APRA request, I'm thinking it is something else, don't worry.
That's,
I'm just
oh,
making
would
sure
you
we don't
consider that an APRA request? I was gonna put that under John Hancock.
Same.
Whatever, okay, whatever, go ahead, I'll bet then.
Well,
What do we say?
I don't think it's so much of an APRA request, I think it's just a question.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, okay.
This is it,
All right, item R, John Hancock. The pension board has received this email from, just says Pat. I am writing you concerning pension fund that was in question earlier this year. My husband's, Ron Kunzio Jr., his father, Ron Kunzio Sr., was a police officer with the town of West Warwick from 1966 to 1975. Could you please let us know if there is paperwork to be filled to get an accounting of where his funds are as he is deceased? Thank you, Patricia Kunzio. Tracy has looked up with the information we had from John Hancock, and on the signed released list in certificates, Mr. Kunzio did sign off on, signed release on his share here. I don't know if there's really anything that the board can do with this. My thing that I question is, it says concerning the pension fund that was in question earlier this year. It wasn't the pension fund that was in question, it was the equities that was under John Hancock. I mean, the annuities. So any paperwork on that or whatever would be through John Hancock.
think we have everything they have that has anything to do with that
Yeah.
contract. I mean, we could certainly give her the same, I don't know if she
Packet?
wants the whole packet, it's
Yeah.
probably
A
maybe
lot of pages,
300
yeah.
pages or so, but I mean, she could certainly get it, it's already been produced as a matter of public record.
Yeah, I think she wants to know if there's any paperwork or that she could just file. She wants to know where his money is.
Can you submit it to
That's how I
Attorney-
understood it.
Attorney Williamson? I mean, isn't it
I mean-
town level?
The rest of them, if you got a sign one,
Yeah,
you
Right.
probably forgot about it.
Right.
Just say you get the sign
Well, the
off.
thing is,
We don't actually have a handwritten, it's just like a typed, some of it you can't read, Jerry. Like,
Some of
you
them
know,
are- yeah.
reading the whole
this
document
list
on it.
says that he did, it was just a list of people that did sign off. But the thing, the other question that I have is, okay, so he's deceased. His wife would be collected until she's deceased. So they should have that information, they should know that, or should be able to get that from family members.
My thoughts are, you have a member, well, not a non-member. The gentleman that she's talking about was non-vested, right? And it's a daughter-in-law that's asking the question.
Right.
I mean, it's not a member of the pension fund.
No,
It's not a retiree.
right,
I think honestly, if you have a question about that, ask the town of West Warwick and ask Attorney Williamson at this point.
I don't
You know, we have paperwork that says, he signed off on it.
Right,
But
but
we
that's
only
all.
have that paperwork because
I
we
mean, I
got it
don't
from
know if there's
Williamson.
any more, I just happened
If
to
you
see
look at the
this.
records, I don't believe you retired. I believe you got fired.
okay. That would nothing to do with us anyway.
Yeah, no,
Right.
no, I know that.
Right, and he may have got to return his contributions, which we don't, right,
Correct.
So the other thing I can think of, the only thing he would have been entitled to was a return of contributions.
Right.
If his question is, where's my return of contributions, you know, or where's my father-in-law's return of contributions?
I wonder if
53
there's something in
years
the
later,
HR
I just-
file then that'll state.
Well, she can-
There's nothing in the pension office, I have no file on this gentleman.
Well, then HR, yeah, if you want to check HR and see and then give her that. If not, then the other thing then is, she needs to contact the town and Mr. Williamson. Right.
We're not gonna have it. I mean,
No, we're not going to have that.
So is that what you want me to say? I'll try to contact HR, see what I can find, and if not, I'll let you know, and then if not, send her an email to contact the town.
See if she's
Yeah.
talked to Williamson. He may have more than we'd be able to get. He
Well,
wasn't a vested
personnel's
member.
gotta have information on him.
You know what, how about if I type back to her, why doesn't she ask the question to the town, because now I'm doing the same thing. I
Same
wouldn't
thing.
tell her-
Right.
Yeah, I would say maybe just send the one sheet, say,
Yeah.
you know, this is the information we have, you've checked the pension office, you don't
Yeah.
have any further information, and
You
you
can
recommend, and give her the contact
contact
information
the
for
town.
everybody.
Yeah.
She can contact HR, I'm gonna do the same thing, contact the town manager, HR. I'll just send her this one thing that I saw that he closed, and she can go further.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, Tracy, thank you. Okay, item S, RFQ for legal counsel. I started looking into that because we don't actually have a contract with legal counsel at the present moment. Helene has taken the original request and worked on it. We had a meeting earlier tonight. I had a few questions on the draft that was run up. So we're gonna make some more changes to that, and we should have a final draft for next month.
So we're gonna table this, make amendments, a motion to table this till next month.
Second.
Motion made and table this till next month. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. T, Pension Board Opinion Request Forms. That's right, you said you had,
Oh, yeah, that goes with one of the items we talked about earlier. We've had multiple requests regarding the early retirement provisions in the different plans and how those all coincide when you look at the plan and the contract and the consent judgments. And there are different answers for all of those things. So that's something that the board is putting together. I've given everyone kind of a quick cheat sheet on early retirement provisions that I've pulled out from all of the different plans, and
you all have that, and the idea is to make the pension board a one-pager that says, you know, if you were hired on or before July 1st, 2014, or if you were hired on or after July 1st, 2014, and if you work for X department, here's your retirement, normal retirement dates, early retirement dates, when you're vested, all that stuff, so that the board can quickly answer, hopefully, all of these questions that are coming up.
Any other discussion? All right,
Motion to table?
I would table
Yeah,
that.
I would, yeah.
Motion to table items T1 through 4.
Second.
motion made and seconded, to table items T1 to 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recertification process.
The
How?
board put together a process. It was presented to the town council 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
and it passed a first reading. It's on for a second reading, I believe, next week.
That's what you just said earlier, yes, it's up for the second reading, but they don't anticipate any problems with it.
And we haven't gotten any questions from the town council on it. It's just putting together basically steps for how to do a recertification on the police and fire side and the
Right.
municipal side.
Then remove it for next month, since it's basically there, you wanna keep it on until it passes.
I think that was what we said last month, was to keep it on
Just
until it
keep it on
passes,
till it
so we can
passes.
include it in everybody's
let's
binders
just-
and everything.
Yeah,
Table
that's
it, just to
fine.
make sure it
Sure.
passes the next council.
Motion to table item U.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table item U. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion. Members?
None.
Public? Yes, sir. Mr. Tellia.
I don't know if this, Jerry Telly, 136 Burlingame. I don't know if this should come between you or HR or whatever. They whacked everybody with the Blue Cross in all the pension things without even notifying anybody. I think it would be proper for either you, the town, somebody to send a letter out just to explain what the hell happened. I did talk to Tracy, and she said something about a working rate. I don't know if anybody knows about a working rate or whatever, but there was a lot of questions. They just did it without explanation. And whether it's the town, HR, whoever it is,
Can you catch me up to speed? I'm not understanding what you're talking about.
because you're not getting a pension. If you get a pension, they just whacked you, everybody, right across the board, everybody.
They reduced the pension straight across.
Not-
the
No,
board?
no, no,
They-
medical.
they
He's talking about
increased-
medical.
They increase medical,
Cost.
right.
Cost.
I mean, my own, I get the
Across
better
board.
plan, I get whacked $74 a month.
Mhm.
It's the principle of it.
Yeah.
It's
The
not
cost
that,
went up. The cost went up, they passed it on to the retirees.
correct, but they just take it out, no explanation.
Oh, they, okay.
Is-
So
No notification either.
No,
No, nothing.
Application for the open enrollment,
Okay,
which they're supposed to send to you,
That's,
okay, so,
and they never did.
And Tracy, when I talked to Tracy agreed, she's, you know,
yeah.
a letter from somebody, explain, anytime. If the council just said, hey, we're gonna whack all the pensioners $500, just do it, no explanation, it'd be an uproar.
Mr. Tellier, has there been an increase ever, as far as you're aware of, as far as medical costs since
Not,
you've retired?
I have not seen it.
You've never heard
it's
of
gone
that?
up every time since 2014, but not that much. I'm the one that actually sends the rates to the bank after the town gives me the working rate.
Yeah, I think,
I think it went up a
I
couple
think
bucks
it went
last
out,
month.
yeah, like
Yeah, it
once,
wasn't even
once.
I'm just wondering if this is like
Right.
they
Right.
do this every time Blue Cross goes up, they just
Yes,
passing
every time
on
the
to-
working rates go up, because they're a percent of the working rates, the town gives us the working rates.
Alright.
Verified with HR, she checks the numbers.
Because I had
and
heard
send
something
it to
too,
the
and it
bank.
sounded like this was out of the blue, never heard of this before, and
Well, the thing is, if you
Because
had
it
it,
went up 25%.
Yeah. No, if you-
That's why,
Yeah.
it
and you-
jumped, skyrocketed.
no, I don't blame
You
you.
know what?
Unfortunately, that's not
yeah,
our realm,
and
but-
a letter would have just probably solved a lot of issues.
Yeah.
A lot of people have still got questions. I said, oh, we'll bring it up. Now, I don't know if it's you or HR or who is
Unfortunately, I
it?
would say
Yeah,
no, it's
I
not
just
ours.
think
That would
sometimes
be-
it is HR, the town negotiates the working rates, HR gave me the working rates, and I submitted your figures to the bank.
Well, I would still request that all the retirees at least get a letter explaining what happened.
Well, I put a note here with my other notes for our meeting with HR. See if we can discuss at the same time or
Yeah.
after that meeting's done and before everybody leaves, when we're done with the other stuff for this form here. The rate increases, how they're figured, when they know, and if they can do the notices, and the same thing about, as Russ said about the open enrollment. I mean, they have that information, so we should be able to just pass that along.
No, I think any changes in any of our plans, anything at all,
Well,
we should at least get a notification.
If we don't get a COLA, we come to you, because that's part of the plan, and that's through our Rockland Trust pension check.
Right.
So when they're taking an increased deduction
Yeah.
out of our Rockland Trust pension
Yeah.
check, it's literally being taken from the trust that the pension board oversees. So under our 5-year consent decrees, the town actually is supposed to be under an obligation to show us the working rates and the claims broken down by groups. That's something they haven't done. So the issue still turns on you
Yeah.
because our first Rockland check, and Tracy gave us the heads up. But again, it's coming through our pension check
I see.
that the town has unilaterally said,
It's
take
re-
another
Yeah.
$19 from Norman's healthcare coast to coast 1500 plan.
I see.
Okay, without discussing it with the parties, but going through our pension check as well. And some of the guys with a saturated plan, it's $235 a month. It's a big amount of money.
Yeah.
So, it really does kind
Yeah.
of fall on you guys.
Yeah.
You're the ones somehow ordering Rockland to say, and by the way, take this out of their account based on the health care.
Well, you
Alright.
just did say, Tracy, that the town negotiated the rate, gave you
I
the
got
rate.
the working rate.
Yeah.
I did the figures on what the changes were, sent it back to HR to make sure it was right, sent it back to me, and I sent it to them.
This is the same
So-
town who can't figure out the appropriate payments on item L and M, guys. And here we go, we're doing it with healthcare, but we're not doing it, they're not doing it with something else,
Yeah.
so.
All right, I
We should
will,
at least request any notice to submit to retirees that, yeah, the working rate has gone up X amount. We need to know about it ahead of time so we can let them know about it. I didn't realize it was,
Not every retiree can be reached, of course.
right.
From Tracy, I mean, we have emails and everything else,
But even if we can
by
get
the
it-
amount of time of turnaround, sometimes we can't get to
I
that.
can next time email
No, you did us. I sent it out.
Oh, I did?
You
See,
saved
I
us.
even did it.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You saved 80% of the storm.
Right.
You
Yeah,
clearly
but you know
did
what,
save 80%
I do that
of
as
the
a
storm.
courtesy for
Yeah.
you guys. I did,
Yeah,
that's
that
right,
needs-
I did. Oh my
That
God,
needs to
I don't
happen,
know
that
what
needs
I
to
do have
continue. It needs to be,
I'm sorry? I
I
usually do.
right, then they know.
No, you
They may
did.
change it, right.
No, you did.
Norman, Sach, and Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin was on it.
That gets what Sach was saying, it's back to his point that if he had the open enrollment coming, he
You know
could
what,
make a
I found
decision to,
Kevin's email
if he knows the
sometimes.
I
working
think
rate's
he's
Right.
going
gonna
up,
have trouble
changes.
little
because he
tricky.
could open
Yeah.
up some of my docs.
But he
stuff,
was in the
Yeah.
CCs.
But he couldn't open up a lot of my stuff. Remember those last few times with his email? The documents I sent, remember I attached them? Maybe that's what he must be having email trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we
I
did.
forgot I sent it.
I
Yeah,
just
a lot of
have-
stuff was
Hold- hold-
Went up to the,
everything I tried to send to me yesterday.
I tried to
I just have a comment. If I'm hearing you correctly, these rates were all changed without notifying you, giving you a heads up. Just the rates were changed and it was deducted and that's how you found out.
Well,
That's
we,
not-
they can,
Because it went up so
But
much.
that amount,
Maybe.
yeah, and most
I don't
people
know.
wouldn't have an issue with a
Well-
minimal amount or a small percentage, but
Yeah.
25.
being notified of that there's gonna be an increase, like Russ said, you get hit with a big increase. But if you're notified that this is gonna be increased, and then open enrollment, you can say, you know what? I can't afford this increase,
Right.
this is too much,
I'm gonna switch.
I wanna
plans.
switch plan.
Yeah,
Right.
you didn't even know about
They
that.
did not have that option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
told
So-
them.
Right.
Right, and every year up to this year, you did get the open enrollment, everybody just got
Yeah.
a boost in the pay. And whether it was,
So,
it's just the whole principle of it. That's
yeah, and as Norman said, it does end up falling back on us, so I will,
And then
I will
they
address
just say
HR
it
with
was
that.
in January.
Yeah.
We dropped the ball.
Because if you're on HSA, you don't have to worry about the working
Every
rate.
other
Correct.
year.
No, but if they're retiree or someone wants to go, it's half
Yeah.
of it, yeah, there's two open enrollments
No,
now.
I'm just saying,
But
like,
yeah.
what
It gets
Russ
back to we
said,
still
he's like,
have
oh, the
to
working
do
rate's going up 25%.
something
Oh,
we
no.
shouldn't have
So what
to do,
he's
but
saying
we
is,
don't
yeah,
have a
they would've
choice.
got the open enrollment
Then they
money.
We
would've
have to
They
talk to
could've
HR,
got paid
right.
for
I mean, really, open enrollment
I
is
just told
another
you
thing
how
that
it
doesn't
goes.
fall on
I
you.
get the
No.
billing rate,
Just
I know.
I send it to
seems
the
like everything
she
seems
verifies
to
the
be
numbers,
here.
you know what I mean?
For
Yeah.
what
It's
reason,
happened
I
to
don't
me
know.
since 14, because it went so
Yeah.
long, but they didn't get the open enrollment.
I'm surprised we only had one or two things about this.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that hornet's nest
I
on
didn't
this.
know they didn't get the open enrollment.
Now, for example, I got one guy that went from $280 a month to $350
What-
with no notice.
No, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, the older retirees didn't even pay a co-share.
Hmm,
When we renegotiated in these
Big.
consent
Yeah.
decrees,
Yeah.
we, of course, with pro quo, we did negotiate to keep some of our true benefits, but, so, we deducted a portion of health care
hmm.
for the first time. So just imagine, less than 5 years later, a bigger deduction being
It's
taken.
almost doubling.
They're not explaining the working rate to us,
Yeah.
nor are they individually giving our claims by class, which they're really supposed to break down for the retirees, different groups, as well as the actives. You're actually supposed to be able to see that, and how do they come to the working rate.
Yeah.
And as you know, when we sat down in negotiations,
Yeah.
they had to break down working rates to us of different plans,
Yeah.
which is something that they're kind of obligated to do, especially if
But
they're
if you're
gonna
paying,
increase.
if they're gonna charge you for it, they should be telling you why they're charging you that, and what you're gonna get for that money. Yeah. We will, talk to HR about it and see if we can get it resolved.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded, adjourn, all in favor? Aye. Ayes, any nays?